The first time I walked into the vaulted cellar at the Benedict Eschleman House in Conestoga Township, Lancaster County, in the middle of August, I expected stale air, trapped heat, and the dull groan of some hidden machine trying to fight the season. What I found instead broke something in me. The stone smelled wet and mineral. The light felt dim and blue. My skin cooled before my eyes adjusted. I could hear flies outside. I could hear nothing mechanical inside. I stood there for 11 minutes, looking for the expected thing. No condenser, no duct chase, no compressor line. It wasn't there, and that's when I understood I'd been wrong about everything. The ground was doing the work, quietly, constantly, without permission, without billing you every month. I didn't realize it as a fact first. I realized it as a feeling in my own body. I've been going back to Lancaster County every August for 3 years, and every time I find something the building industry forgot on purpose. What I'm going to show you is simple enough to build in one weekend and powerful enough to change how you think about summer forever. The number that matters is 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the temperature Pennsylvania root cellars hold below frost level, according to the Pennsylvania Agricultural History Project. And yes, this works even if your house was built 50 years ago. Stay with me. Because what I found in Lancaster County uses the same physics the Persians used to move cooler air through desert buildings 3,300 years ago. Here is the science, not the marketing. The United States Department of Energy says shallow Earth stays between 40 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That band barely moves compared with summer air. Your attic swings wildly, your siding bakes. The soil a few feet down does not. That matters because heat always chases balance. Push 92-degree air through a buried tube that sits inside 54-degree soil, and the air starts giving up heat immediately. It acts like your car radiator in reverse. Instead of dumping engine heat into outside air, you dump outside heat into cooler ground. Natural resources. Canada lays out the design logic plainly. Bury the tube at least 1.5 meters deep. That is just under 5 feet. Use smooth pipe. Hold a minimum 2% slope. Drain the condensate. Filter the intake. Seal every joint against groundwater and radon. Climate Action Accelerator summarizes the performance in simple terms. Earth tubes can cool summer air by about 6.8 degrees Celsius and warm winter air by 14.3 degrees Celsius. On the right length and depth, that is a serious head start. Not because the pipe makes cold, because the Earth already stored it, and the field has a name for the advantage: coefficient of performance. In plain English, you can move roughly 8 to 12 units of cooling effect for every 1 unit of fan power. A conventional box usually lives far lower and keeps billing you for the privilege. That gap represents a massive market in equipment and service every year, and that is why you have never heard of this. I saw the proof again in Berlin, Ohio, Holmes County, late July. The yard shimmered. The gravel lane radiated heat through my boots. Then I stepped inside a summer kitchen and felt the temperature fall off my shoulders almost instantly. No compressor answered me. No fan ramped up. No vent hissed. I heard a screen door, a horse shifting weight, and dishes touching wood. That was it. A man named Reuben told me in the plainest way possible that you do not argue with the ground. You use it. Then he pointed me toward an older storage room and said his people had relied on the same idea for 4 generations. In Lancaster and Holmes County, that memory reaches back through families who carried building habits from the Palatinate, Alsace, Canton Bern, Bavaria, and Württemberg. That knowledge never disappeared. It was written out of the manual. It was waiting. And a Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission record from Lancaster Plain, 1730 to 1960, still shows vaulted cellars built for cool storage and dairy work. This does not start in Ohio. It does not start in Pennsylvania. It starts wherever people faced heat and paid attention. In Yazd, Persia, wind catchers pushed air downward and often across subterranean water channels. One still rises. 33 meters over Daulatabad Garden. In Roman buildings, raised floors and hidden flues moved air through stone and masonry instead of asking a machine to brute force comfort. You can see the same mind at work in the American Southwest. Semi-subterranean rooms and thick earth contact flattened the day's extremes. Different language, different continent, same answer. Every civilization that mastered extreme heat arrived at the same answer independently. The Amish never forgot. They carried it from the Palatinate and Canton Burn to Pennsylvania and Ohio roughly 280 years ago and kept building it because it worked and because they never needed anyone's permission to do what made sense. Now comes the part that should make you angry. In 1955, Carrier chose to turn residential cooling into a volume business after room air conditioner sales jumped past 1 million units in 1953. After the merger with affiliated gas equipment, Carrier became a $200 million company overnight. By 1951, air conditioning was already a billion-dollar industry. A buried pipe threatened every compressor that never needed to get sold. The mechanism did not look like a villain in a dark room. It looked like standards, law, and habit. Penn State's history of ventilation shows that ASHVE adopted a minimum rate of 30 cubic feet per minute per occupant in 1895 and pushed a model law in 1914. By 1925, 22 states adopted that requirement. ASHRAE's own history says those rates necessitated mechanical ventilation and became possible through the electric power industry. Then, ANSI/ASHRAE, Standard 62-1973, formalized natural and mechanical ventilation and became the basis for most state codes. Nobody told you, not your builder, not your contractor, not the man who sold you a bigger compressor. The allies were real. Carrier bought the magazines. Better Homes and Gardens. Time. Newsweek. Carrier's own corporate history says the ad campaign started in 1956. The state code bodies delivered the airflow framework. The electric power industry sold the electricity every fan and compressor needed. Carrier and affiliated gas equipment sold the hardware. Different desks, same direction. Money tied them together. An entire field of knowledge disappeared from architecture schools, building codes, and engineering curricula. Not because it failed, because it wasn't profitable. And you can still watch the same machine working now. The Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute spent $964,622 lobbying in 2022, according to Open Secrets. In 2024, that number rose to $1,223,576. At the same time, AHRY's own 2023 standards page framed the conversation around SEER 2 and HSPF 2 and a roughly 7% efficiency bump. That means the fight stays inside the equipment aisle. Which box, which badge, which financed replacement. Not whether you can shrink the load before any box turns on. The US HVAC systems market sits above $31.7 billion a year. Every alternative installed is a unit of that market that never gets sold, refilled, replaced, or renewed. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people with land, stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you. You don't need to tear up your foundation. You need a yard, a drill, a weekend. Start where the ground already helps you. Pick the shaded side of your yard first, not the driveway edge, not the south fence line. I want one straight run of smooth wall 4-inch pipe, 32 to 48 feet long, buried 5 to 6 feet deep with a steady 2% slope away from the house so condensation never sits still. Use either Schedule 40 PVC or Smooth Wall HDPE. Both work. Both stay cleanable. At the intake, set a weather hood 18 to 24 inches above grade and cover it with 3/4-inch hardware cloth. Behind that, add a MERV 8 pleated filter inside a simple box you can open without tools. Then, lay 4 to 6 inches of washed gravel under the trench and wrap the drain zone with woven geotextile fabric where your soil stays wet. At the house end, bring the pipe into a basement, crawl space, mudroom, or high wall register. Add a 20 to 40 watt inline duct fan and seal every joint with exterior silicone and foil HVAC tape. If you want the cleanest setup, install a condensate tee and a trap before the pipe enters the wall. Natural Resources Canada says filtration is required, drainage is required, and sealing every connection matters because radon and groundwater exploit laziness. Smooth wall pipe is not optional. Corrugated perforated drain tile causes standing condensate, dust traps, and radon entry. If your yard is tiny, build 2 shorter runs instead of 1 bad run. 2 20-foot lines beat 1 crooked 40-foot mess. Keep bends gentle. Keep the trench clean. Keep the outlet higher than the low point. 1 Saturday morning gets the trench marked and the intake built. 1 long afternoon gets the pipe laid. 1 second day closes the trench and ties in the fan. On a 95-degree day, you should expect supply air in the high 60s to low 70s before any room mixing. That does not turn your house into a meat locker. It does something better. It knocks the edge off the entire thermal load before your conventional system ever wakes up. In a basement room or a shaded first floor, that difference feels immediate. In a small workshop, it feels dramatic. Maintenance is simple. Check the filter once a season, inspect the intake screen twice each summer, flush the line, and inspect the condensate path once a year. That's it. Your conventional system costs $6,800 to $14,200 to install, $91 to $247 per month to run in hot weather, and lasts 12 to 18 years before it ends up in a landfill. This costs $186 to $428 total. It lasts 25 to 50 years. Your choice. Everything I've covered across this channel, root cellar airflow math, rain barrel first flush, passive shade windowing, I've put it all in one place. Step by step, season by season, room by room. If you're the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, not for me, for what comes next. Because this is not a channel. This is a quiet movement of people who have decided they're done being sold what they already own. I want to hear from you. Drop your state, your worst summer electric bill, and whether your grandparents ever used a cellar, spring house, or shaded porch trick in the comments. I read every single one. And your answers decide what we cover next. Next week, I'm going to show you what a 1940 Willis Carrier prediction reveals about utility cooling and why the old low-tech version still embarrasses the modern one. The technique uses nothing but stone, shade, and moving water. And the 1940 quote that proves Carrier knew about district-style cooling 22 years before Hartford Gas Company sold it to downtown customers. You're not going to want to miss that one.